Well, after two assassination attempts on Donald Trump's life, you'd think the Democrats would have learnt about the dangers of inflammatory rhetoric. Yet, in the final weeks of the US election campaign, Kamala Harris, reeking of desperation, has compared Donald Trump to Hitler.
It is deeply troubling and incredibly dangerous that Donald Trump would invoke Adolf Hitler, the man who is responsible for the deaths of 6 million Jews and hundreds of thousands of Americans.
And if that wasn't bad enough, she then offered up this description of Trump at a CNN town hall event.
I do believe that Donald Trump is unstable, increasingly unstable, and unfit to serve.
Do you think Donald Trump is a fascist?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. And I also believe that the people who know him best on this subject should be trusted.
Joining me now is Sky News contributor Beau Davidson. Beau, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Are people listening to these scare tactics?
You know, Danica, Franklin D. Roosevelt, one of the great American presidents, had the iconic phrase, "The only thing we have to fear is fear itself." Well, if you're Kamala Harris, the only thing you have left is fear itself. That's the tactic. And you know what, Danica, people aren't listening to this because they've heard it all before. From the moment Donald Trump came down that escalator, we've heard it. We've heard these comparisons. And it's terrible because we've heard it from Barack Obama. We've heard it from Hillary Clinton. We've heard it from Joe Biden. And now we're hearing it from Kamala Harris. It's become a campaign of fear-mongering, and frankly, it's the only strategy they have left because they see how terribly she is performing.
Yeah, and let's also not forget, it was this sort of inflammatory rhetoric that led to two assassination attempts against Trump's life. What does it say about the Democrats' campaign that they have resorted back to that fear again, particularly in the final weeks of the campaign?
It shows that the Democrats are desperate, that they're struggling, that they are out of touch with reality, that they are afraid of losing. I think that's a real palpable fear, that they're losing grip. You know, Danica, Republicans tend to appeal to logic and to reason, and Democrats tend to appeal to someone's emotions. And I think that's why we're seeing the fear-mongering tactic. A couple of nights ago, I went to see this documentary at Mar-a-Lago called The Man You Don't Know. And it's Donald Trump told in the eyes of his family and his friends, people that know him really, really well. People know him as a philanthropist, as someone who's charitable, who paid for someone's cancer treatment. That's the man you don't know. Instead, Kamala Harris is trying to present Donald Trump as Hitler, as Stalin, as someone who exterminated his own people. That's extremely dangerous rhetoric. We've already seen two assassination attempts. How many more do we need? At what point do we reach a threshold of where that violent rhetoric can actually lead to violence? He nearly died. He said it before, I shouldn't be here. So I think that kind of language, not only is it desperate and is it fear-mongering, it's extremely dangerous and there's no place for it.
Yeah, exactly. It is very dangerous. Now, as I mentioned, Kamala Harris has taken part in a CNN town hall and was once again unable to answer very basic questions. She was asked at one point how her administration would differ to that of Joe Biden, and she went on some sort of bizarre ramble. Have a look.
I know what home ownership means to the American people, not to mention what it meant to my mother, who worked very hard and saved up so that by the time I was a teenager, she was able to buy our first home. I bring to it my experience actually taking care of my mother when she was sick, and it was, as it turned out, dying from cancer. And so I know what it means and have the experience of taking care of an elderly relative, and I have raised children.
Yeah, Beau, she is all over the place. And we know that Kamala struggles with policy, but this late in the game, it doesn't fill you with much hope that America would be any better under a Harris administration, particularly when you hear word salads like that.
Absolutely. She's incapable of answering basic questions. And you can tell in that clip, as you look at that woman's face that's asking her the question, it wasn't answered. Even when she prepares for these, even when she has these incredibly prepared questions and prepared answers, she still can't answer the question. And you saw that recently at a town hall, someone shouted out a question and Maria Shriver said, oh, no, you can't ask that question. These are all prepared questions, and she still can't answer a prepared question. It's unbelievable. And, you know, I mentioned that I saw a movie about Donald Trump called The Man You Don't Know. There's a woman we do know. and that's Kamala Harris. And this is someone who was incapable as vice president and would be incredibly incapable as president. The record shows it. The last 3.5 years have been disastrous.
Let's talk about polling. Donald Trump is ahead of Kamala Harris 50% to 48%. That's according to a new Fox News national survey. That's actually a reversal from last month when Harris had a narrow advantage. But I've got to say, it really feels as though the momentum has swung back to Donald Trump. Kamala seemed to gain an early lead, but it seems as though that has changed. Is that the feeling over in the US? And if so, why?
Oh, yeah. There's been a tremendous pendulum shift. I think when Kamala Harris first entered the race and was anointed the nominee, she wasn't even chosen by a primary procedure. I think there was this feeling in the Republican Party of, oh, gosh, what do we do? She's the new shiny toy. But as I've said to you before, Danica, just give it time. And we did give it time, and we've seen what's happened. Trump is ahead, according to Real Clear Politics, in every single one of the 7 battleground states. That's unbelievable because that wasn't the case about a month ago, even several weeks ago. So that's critical. Polymarket, the betting odds are showing Trump has about a 64% chance of winning. That's a tremendous momentum shift. And if you look at these rallies, Trump today was in Arizona and Las Vegas. He's traversing the country. He's the Energizer Bunny. He keeps going and going and going. Kamala Harris is taking days off. And I think what that shows, Danica, is that Donald Trump's going to outwork. He's going to outwork her. He's going to outperform her. He's going to arduously dedicate himself to the American people. And to me, that's showing up. And it's showing up in the polls. I think it's going to show up on Election Day on November 5th because Donald Trump is just simply outworking her. This is exactly what he did to Hillary Clinton. And I think that's why you're seeing such a tremendous momentum shift back to his favor. And notwithstanding something incredibly, some sort of surprise, I think he should be winning this election fairly handily.
Well, not long to go now. Beau Davidson, great to speak with you. Thank you for joining us.
Always a pleasure. Thank you, Danica.